Hey, I'm Sarah, and welcome to Thrills and Kills Booktube, where we talk about horror, thriller, and true crime. Today, I'm going over my February reading plans. Now, I am way more of a mood reader than I am someone who can follow a TBR list. However, for 2023, I am trying to be a little bit more organized with my reading. Sometimes I feel like if I totally just leave it up to my mood, I end up getting overwhelmed with my choices and not reading anything. So I'm trying to find a happy medium between the two. So let's get started. So in my 2023 reading plan video, which I'll put up here and link down below, I laid out plans, like rough sketches of what I wanted to do for every month. I want to do more themed reading vlogs for this year. Those are my favorite videos to make. I also enjoy watching those from other people. So let me know down below in the comments if you enjoy reading vlogs, and if so, like what themes or what type of books would you like to see? For February, I thought, okay, this is like the worst month of the year. It's dark, it's cold. Where I live, we don't necessarily get snow. We just get that really gross like sleet and rain. It's just a depressing time of year. The holidays are over. It's not quite spring. So I thought, okay, let me lean into that and lean into the seasonal depression. And I'm going to read some especially dark, disturbing, or bleak books. Now, my number one spot to go to for recommendations is the Books of Horror Facebook group. And I went on there and just started searching for people's recommendations for bleak books. I also did get a few recommendations off of Reddit. And in the fall, I actually went and did a whole buying spree of books that specifically met that criteria. And again, I'll link it down below, and I can put it up here. I did a book haul of only bleak, disturbing books. So all that being said, there are 3 that I'm going to read in February and do a reading vlog for. And the 3 are, first we have Reprieve by James Hahn Matson. This is a really itty bitty one. A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen Peck. And then lastly, Experimental Film by Gemma Files. So I know very little about these 3. The extent of what I know basically is that they're supposed to be bleak, they're supposed to be disturbing, and they also have very different plot lines. I didn't want to read 3 books that were all bleak and, let's say, apocalyptic or dystopian. I wanted to make sure that they were unique enough so that way I can compare and contrast them for a reading vlog. Let's start with the smallest one. So A Short Stay in Hell. This is supposed to be following a Mormon gentleman named Soren Johansson. And in the Mormon faith, they do believe in an afterlife, and they believe that they'll be reunited with their family. So he ends up dying, and his thought going into death is that he was going to go to, the Mormon version of the afterlife and spend eternity with his family. Well, he is very, very wrong, according to the book. So when he wakes up after dying, he finds himself in a version of hell that he has never heard about, with a god that he has no idea who it is. It's definitely not a god that he ever worships. And in this hell, you can see these are actually library stacks. And there is essentially a never-ending landscape of bookcases and books. This is, I guess, more of like a purgatory than hell, because you can find your way out of it, and the only way to escape and get out of this is if you can find the one book that is your life story. So this is supposed to be existential, make you really confront your ideas of mortality. What type of afterlife do you believe in? If you believe in one, if you believe in a hell, what that might look like. It's supposed to be just like an existential dread horror novella. So right up my alley for what I'm looking for that reading vlog. Next up, like I said, is Experimental Film by Gemma Files. I don't see this get a lot of love on Booktube, Bookstagram, TikTok. However, in that Books of Horror Facebook group, I was seeing nothing but good things about it. This also follows sort of like a found footage trope, which I am finding is probably my new favorite subgenre of horror. I have always loved those types of horror movies. I just never knew how well it may or may not work for books. And then in January, I read episode 13, Craig DeLuey's new release, and I did an entire reading vlog about that. Loved it. So I thought, okay, let me pick up another found footage type book. So we are following Lois Carnes. She is a film critic. As a critic, obviously she has to attend film screenings and premieres and write her thoughts about it. So at one of these screenings, she comes across this found footage of a silent movie from the year 1918. So at first she's not sure what movie it might be or who made the movie, and through her investigation and research, she is able to tie it back to someone named Iris Dunlop Whitcomb, who actually was a spiritualist and ended up making this silent film. But her and the film disappeared mysteriously from a train in 1918. So Lois is sort of struggling. She's also trying to raise her autistic son, and she really wants to make a name for herself. So now that she's stumbled upon this mysterious footage that was thought to be gone forever, she's like, aha, this is it. This is gonna be my big break. This is what I'm gonna do. So therefore, she starts creating this whole project that she wants to show that this Iris Dunlop Whitcomb was the very first female filmmaker in Canada, where this takes place. She was a relatively unknown name, and so Lois thinks, all right, if I can bring attention to this and the whole like mystery of this lost and now found footage, I might be able to get my big break. However, along the way, she comes into contact with a demon. I bet you weren't expecting that. And essentially, the demon wants their pound of flesh. The fact that she has found something that's supposed to be her big break and really change the course of her life, well, you can't get that for nothing, and the demon has come to Lois to collect. That's about all I know, all I want to know. I prefer to go into books a little bit blind. It also says that it won the Shirley Jackson Award for Best Novel previously, and Laird Barron has given it a little blurb. I've seen nothing but good reviews online. That'll be part of that reading vlog. And the last book that's going to be part of those Bleak reading vlog is Reprieve by James Hahn Matson. This is also going to fit one of the reading prompts for the 2023 Books in the Freezer reading challenge. So this is set in the 90s, and there's a group of people who are in an escape room. This is meant to be more of a social horror. So we have like existential dread, we've got a demon found footage, and then we've got a social horror. This is centering on a brutal killing in an escape room. So basically an escape room gone wrong. And apparently this is going to touch on themes such as capitalism, hate politics, racial fetishism, and our obsession with fear as entertainment. Well, as someone who enjoys horror and makes this whole entire YouTube channel about horror and true crime books, he might be talking about me. So that'll be interesting to read that. Anyways, there's a group of 4 people, and they are entering this infamous full contact escape room, and they do have a safe word, reprieve, but they're trying to see if they can make it all the way through without having to use the safe word. If they can do that, there is a very large cash money prize at the end. But just as they're getting going, a man breaks into their escape room and starts killing. And so that's how the story starts off apparently, and then the rest of the book, the other 3 people, you are understanding how the events unfolded and the aftermath through their points of view. This line really struck me in the blurb, that it forces all of them to reckon with the ways in which their beliefs and actions contributed to this horrifying catastrophe. Okay, so I think those 3 will make a very interesting reading vlog. We'll see how it goes. I'm also reading 2 books through book clubs in the month of February. So with the Morbidly Curious book club, we are reading Dead Mountain, the untold true story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. I actually read this in January already. It was pretty good. My full thoughts are in my January wrap-up video. If you're not familiar, the Dyatlov Pass incident. So this happened in 1959 in Russia, in the Ural Mountains, which is getting into Siberia. There was a group of college kids, and they were trying to go for this mountaineering certification. And in order to do so, they had to do a very difficult hike, not just like a day hike, but like a 2-week hike through the Siberian mountains. And they had a plan, and the plan unfortunately went awry. So all we really know is that one of the students in the group had to turn back before they got to Dead Mountain. And so he was the sole survivor. The students did not make it back to the school for the start of the next semester. Their friends started getting worried, and eventually they called in the government search and rescue teams, and there was this whole search and rescue expedition up in these mountains in February in Siberia. You can imagine how snowy and cold it would be. And they did find all of the students' bodies, but in very mysterious circumstances. Things like body parts missing, things like they ran out of their tent in the middle of the night, but they weren't wearing shoes, they weren't wearing coats, but the tent looked perfectly perfect. Like all their shoes were lined up in a row. Their stove was set up for dinner. Just very weird circumstances. And Dead Mountain is written by a man named Donnie Eicher. He is an American filmmaker, and somehow he stumbled across this story online and got sucked in and went down the rabbit hole and decided he wanted to go to Russia and investigate. So this book is, his story of doing the investigation and trying to come up with a hypothesis of what actually happened to them. He does talk to different scientists, and he gets into, at the end, what him and a group of scientists believe is the most likely explanation for what happened to this group. So it was pretty interesting. And then for the true crime book club, we are reading We Keep the Dead Close, A Murder at Harvard in a Half Century of Silence. I had never heard of this one before. I'm waiting for my hold to come in through the library on Libby, but from what I can tell from reading the blurb online, this is taking place in, I think, 1969, and there is a grad student at Harvard who is found murdered in her off-campus apartment. And this is happening at the time of when Harvard was merging with Radcliffe College down the road, which at the time was a female college, all-female college. Fun fact, I also went to a women's college, not Radcliffe. But so there were a lot of rumors circling about what happened to her, why was she murdered, including some people were spreading a rumor that she was involved in an affair with one of the anthropology professors. So that's one part of the story. And then 40 years later, there is a current undergrad at Harvard who comes across this story and wants to try and figure out what actually happened to the student. Why was she murdered? Who did it? Etc. So that's all I really know. Sounds interesting. We'll see how I feel. So if you want to check that out, you'll have to see my February wrap-up video. All right, next up, these books are just general books I have on hold at the library. They're not part of a book club. They're not part of any sort of themed reading vlog. It's just stuff I wanted to get to. So first we have The Changeling by Victor LaValle. I have never read anything by Victor LaValle, but I just keep hearing great things. And so I need to remedy that wrong and get to it. All I know so far is that it follows a young man who actually was abandoned by his father as a child, and he had all sorts of bad dreams and nightmares about this as a kid. Now he is a brand new parent. Him and his wife are bringing their child home from the hospital for the first time, potentially suffering with some like postpartum depression or anxiety, and just in general, all the big life changes and the stress that goes along with being a brand new parent. And suddenly his wife and child are starting to act very differently, and he is having his nightmares again, and he has to go on it says on the blurb, an odyssey or a quest to try and figure out what's going on. Are these the wife and child that he knew, or is something more sinister going on? Very excited for that to come in. I have been trying to film this video for 2 days, and my husband keeps interrupting, or the dogs. Now he's fucking making a latte. We have an espresso maker, and I don't know if you can hear the fucking latte maker going. Like, I literally, when I got dressed today, I put on the same shirt, so I would try to have some continuity in this video, but like, fuck it. All right, next up, still waiting on my book to come in from the library. I want to read The Good House by Tananarive Due. I did read this, gosh, a long time ago now, 8 years? I don't know, a while, but I know she has a new book coming out this year called The Reformatory. And so before I get to that, I thought, okay, let me reread one of her older books. And I know I enjoyed it the first time I read it. This is a haunted house book where our main character is coming back to a house that was owned by her grandmother. And she basically is trying to like face her demons head on. And it has a lot to do with generational trauma and the haunting that can come along with that. If you enjoy haunted house books that also deal with generational trauma, I would recommend The Spite House, which is coming out this month in February by Johnny Compton. I recently read an arc and I did a full review. I'll link the video down below. And then just another random book that popped up at my library I wanted to get to is The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkoff. Hopefully I said that right. This is waiting for me in Libby to get to. We'll see. It seemed like an interesting enough thriller that's gotten a decent amount of attention on YouTube and on Instagram. So I kind of wanted to see if this is going to be a new thriller author that I enjoy, because I'm all caught up on Alice Feeney and Ruth Ware and Jennifer McMahon. So I'm trying to find a new one. I do like that this main character in The Overnight Guest is a true crime writer herself. I enjoy books that have to do with books or with authors, investigators, podcasters. I tend to like books that center on that. Oh my God, he's so fucking loud. So this true crime writer is named Wiley, and she has picked a house out in the country to be sort of a recluse and write her new book. And there's a snowstorm that comes in, and she's fine because she wants to be left alone to write her new book. However, she has picked a house that 2 people were previously murdered in. So, okay, if you're a true crime writer, maybe that'll set you in the right mood to write your book. Nothing weird there, right? The storm gets worse, and as the storm gets worse, creepy things start happening, including she finds a child out in the snow. She brings the child in, is taking care of them, and then finds out that maybe there was someone else outside, and someone who wants to do them harm, and that she's not as alone as she thought she was going to be. We'll see. That's all I know. Lastly, I have 2 new releases that I would like to try to get to. First up, I have All Hallows by Christopher Golden. I've previously read his Road of Bones, which I really enjoyed, and he's very active in this Books of Horror Facebook group I'm in. I love it when authors are wanting to interact with their fans and wanting to get feedback, and he just seems like such a kind and genuine person. So I picked this up as soon as it came out. What I find interesting is that this is a book set on and about Halloween, but it's coming out in January. That's totally fine. I like Halloween vibes any time of the year. I'm just curious why the publisher didn't think to release it in October, but hey. This is a bit of a nostalgic read because it takes place in the 80s in Massachusetts. So I have heard from some other reviews that you kind of get like Stranger Thing vibes, like thinking about childhood, growing up before the age of the internet, or when your parents would kind of just like let you go out on your bike and ride through town with your friends all day. So a little bit of nostalgia there. Anyways, it's Halloween night, 1984, in this town called Coventry, Massachusetts. The kids are going up and down the street. They're trick-or-treating, but there seem to be some kids in some very like weird, vintagey old costumes that are sort of interspersed with them. And these weird kids seem really, really scared, and they keep running up to people onto houses asking to keep them safe from the cunning man. Suddenly, people are noticing there's a clearing out in the woods that wasn't there before, and a bit of a thorny tree that wasn't there before. Meanwhile, these kids are screaming up and down to anyone who will listen that the cunning man is coming, the cunning man is coming, and please keep them safe. They are terrified. And it says, with families falling apart, the neighborhood splintered by bitterness, who will save the children of Parmenter Road? So, that's all I need to know. It's Christopher Golden, it's about Halloween, and it's set in the 80s. Stranger Thing vibes, that sounds good. And then my last book, I don't have a copy yet because I know it's coming in February in one of my subscription boxes. I won't say what in case you don't know, but I am getting How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Let me preface this by saying I'm not the biggest Grady Hendrix fan, and I know that's probably not popular in the horror booktube community. I just never really feel like he lands it with me, and I don't like the way he writes female characters. I've read My Best Friend's Exorcism, Final Girls, and Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying a Vampire, and they were decent, but I just didn't really like any of them. But it's already coming in the subscription I'm getting, so I figure let me give it a shot. I love haunted house books. Those are some of my all-time favorite horror books in general. We'll give it a shot. All I know is it's about like grief horror, and this woman and her brother, their parents have recently died. She's going back to the house. She's got to clean it up, sell it, kind of take care of their estate. But I think the mom either collected or made creepy dolls, and maybe there's a creepy doll that's haunted. I don't know. That's all I know. Some people that I really trust, they have really enjoyed it. We'll see, just because I'm not the biggest Grady Hendrix fan. So we'll see if maybe this will change my mind. So if I read all those, that's 10 books. However, I did already read Dead Mountain, so 9 books. We'll see if I can get that. It is the shortest month of the year. It also is the month where my seasonal depression tends to peak, and then I don't want to do diddly squat. So if I could just get those first 3 books done, I think I'll be pretty happy. Let me know down below, what are you planning to read in February? Are you reading new releases? Are you trying to get through your backlist? I'm trying to do sort of like a balance between the two this year. So I hope you guys have a good one. See you later. Bye.